Now, today we are going to study the history of Rasellas, Prince of Abyssinia. This is a very simple way, the most simple way to generally know anything about any writer, because if you don't have any book, if you don't have any reference material, Google is the best way to just these are the formal and a very basic information we are trying to find out about. The text we are going to read, that is History of Rasellas, and who it has been written by Samuel Jhonson. So let's find out what is that. Okay, so this brief reading I'm giving you, and that is through Wikipedia. What is that? Samuel Jhonson, 18 September 1709 to 13 December 1784, often called Dr. Jhonson, was an English writer who made lasting contribution as a poet. Playwright, essayist, moralist, critic, biographer, editor, and lexicographer. And if you want to know what is this lexicographer, lexicography is the study of lexicon and is divided into two separate academic disciplines. It is the art of compiling dictionaries. So practical lexicography is the art and craft of compiling, writing, and editing dictionaries. Theoretical lexicography is the scholarly study of semiotic and orthography. Then he was a devotee Anglican. What is Anglican? Anglican is a Western Christian tradition that has developed from practice, liturgy, and identity of the Church of England following the English Reformation. In the context of the Reformation in Europe, it is one of the largest branch of Christianity with around 110 million adherents worldwide. So, and committed Tory. So what is Tory? The Tories were a loosely organized political factions and later a political party in the Parliament of England, Scotland, Ireland, Great Britain, and United Kingdom. They first emerged during the 1679 exclusion crisis when they opposed Whig efforts to exclude James, a Duke of York, from succession. And the Oxford Dictionary of National Biography, which is something very significant, is being written by Dr. Samuel Jhonson. And this is what the Dictionary of National Biography is, a standard work of reference on a notable figure from British history, published since 1885. The updated Oxford Dictionary of National Biography (ODNB) was published on 23 September 2004 in 60 volumes and online. So anyway, let's come, because by the time we have lost. Okay, that's what we are reading about. So Samuel Jhonson is primarily famous for the Oxford Dictionary of National Biography, arguably most distinguished man of letters. He is considered to be the most distinguished man of letters. And in man of letters means, because this is a phrase which is often used in English. An intellectual is a person who engaged in a critical. An intellectual is a person who is engaged in a critical thinking, research, and reflection about the reality of society, and whose proposed solution for the normative problem of society coming from the world of culture, either as a creator or as mediator, the intellectual participates in. So these are actually, if you go by this, then we come to know the more authentic information we can get it here. So then James Boswell, ninth laird of Auchinleck, was a Scottish biographer, diarist, and lawyer born in Edinburgh. He is best known for his biography of his friend and older contemporary of the English writer Samuel Jhonson, which is commonly said to be the greatest biography written in. So James Boswell, we have to remember, because this man, James Boswell, is writing the biography of Samuel Jhonson. So now I think through this fact you would be able to, this is how easily you can understand that this is James Boswell, and this is James Boswell who is writing the his biography of Samuel Jhonson. So, Life of Samuel Jhonson. This is the biography which is being written by James Boswell. James Boswell is writing this biography, Life of Samuel Jhonson, 1791, by James Boswell, is a biographer of English writer Dr. Samuel Jhonson. The work was from the beginning a critical and popular success, and represents a landmark in the development of the modern genre of biography. It is notable for its extensive report. So, was selected by Jhonson biographer Walter Jackson. Walter Jackson was Now you come to know Walter Jackson was an American literary critic and biographer. Is known for the Pulitzer Prize of Biography or autobiography winning biographies of Samuel Johnson, 1978, and John Keats, 64. Samuel Johnson also won 1978 U.S. National Book Award. Okay, so Walter in the whole of literature. Okay, do you remember this quote, which is so significant? Jackson, what is this again reference coming? Okay, so Boswell's Life of Samuel Johnson was selected by Johnson biographer Walter Jackson as the most famous single work of biographical art of actually the life of Samuel Johnson. Life of Samuel Johnson is being written by James Boswell, and this text, The Life of Samuel Johnson, is being called the most single famous work of biographical art in the whole of literature. It is said by Walter Jackson, who also won the Pulitzer Prize. So born in Litchfield. This is what the place Litchfield. Litchfield is a cathedral city and civil parish in Stanford, English. Litchfield is situated roughly 18 miles, 29 kilometers southeast of the country town of Stanford. 8.1 mile southeast of the Rugley, 9 miles northeast of the Walsall. I mean, this is what the location of this city, Litchfield. Okay. He attended Pembroke College, Oxford. Johnson attended this college, Pembroke College, Oxford. Until Oxford, all of you know Oxford. Until lack of funds forced him to leave. After working as a teacher, he moved to London and began writing the Gentleman's Magazine. He started writing in this Gentleman's Magazine. Okay, what is a Gentleman's Magazine? Was a monthly magazine founded in London, English, by Edward Cave in January 1731. It ran uninterrupted from almost 200 years until 22. It was the first to use the term magazine for a periodical. Samuel Johnson's first regular employment as a writer. So this Gentleman's Magazine early work include Life of Mr. Richard Savage. This is what written by Samuel Johnson. There's Samuel Johnson's Life of Mr. Richard Savage, a short title Life of Savage, and full title An Account of the Life of Mr. Richard Savage, son of the Earl River, was the first major biography published by Johnson. It was released anonymously in 1744 and detailed the life of Richard. So these are the writing career of Samuel Johnson we are understanding. So including Life of Mr. Richard Savage, the poem London. This is also written by Samuel Johnson, and The Vanity of Human Wishes. This is also written by Samuel Johnson. So these are the significant writings of Samuel Johnson. London, this is a poem. London is a poem by Samuel Johnson produced shortly after he moved to London, written in 1738. It was the first major published work. The poem of 263 lines imitates Juvenal's third satire expressed by the character of Thales as he decided to leave London for wealth. So these are the writing things. Mr. Richard Savage, London, Vanity of Human Wishes, and the play Irony, Tragedy. This is the tragedy. After 9 years effort, Johnson's Dictionary of English Language. This is one of the most significant work of him, that is 1755. A dictionary of English language, sometimes published as Johnson's Dictionary, was published in 15th April 1755 and written by Samuel Johnson. It is among the most influential dictionaries in the history of the English language. So this is the biggest contribution of this man. Dictionary of English Language appeared in 1755 with the far-reaching effect of modern English and was acclaimed as one of the greatest single achievement of so now you can understand this. What is that? One of the greatest single achievement of English scholarship. Okay. 1755 with far-reaching effect of modern English and was claimed one of the greatest single achievement of English scholarship. This is what the greatest right. Until the arrival of Oxford Dictionary, Oxford English Dictionary, OED. 150 years later, Johnson was preeminent. Later, work included essays and annotated the plays of William Shakespeare and apologue, the history of the history of Rasila, Prince of Abyssinia. This is the text which we are going to study today. The history of, let me just first talk about this. So, the history of Rasila, Prince of Abyssinia. This is what originally titled The Prince of Abyssinia, tale through often abbreviated to Rasila, is an apologue about bliss and ignorance by Samuel Johnson. The book original working title was The Choice of Life. The book was first published in April 1759. So, this is the text we are going to study. The Dictionary of English Language. No. This is what the history of Rasila. Prince of Abyssinia. And that's what it's in 1763 he befriended James Boswell. James Boswell, we have already come to know James Boswell, one of the greatest friend of Samuel Johnson. And this is the man who is responsible for writing the his biography. And the title of the biography is Life of Samuel Johnson, with whom he traveled to Scotland. And Johnson described the journey of the Western Island and near end of life came as massive influence lives of most eminent English poets, 17th and 18th centuries. So, okay, tall and robust. You know, he was very tall and robust. You see, you could see his body. I mean, he is looking very tall and robust. Tall and robust. He displays gesture and tick and disconcerted some on meeting him. Boswell's life, along with other biographies, documented Johnson's behavior and mannerism is such detail that they have informed the posthumous diagnosis of Tourette syndrome. What is this? Tourette syndrome or Tourette syndrome is a common neurodevelopmental disorder that begins in childhood or adolescent is characterized by multiple movement, motor tics, and at least one vocal phonic. Common tics as blinking, coughing through cleaning, sniffing, and facial. So Tourette syndrome, you can later on. He had a Tourette syndrome, a condition not defined or diagnosed in 18th century. After several illness, he died on evening of 13 December 1784 and was buried in Westminster Abbey. This is what Westminster Abbey, the very famous place in England. Westminster Abbey, formerly titled Collegiate Church of Saint Peter at Westminster, is a large, mainly Gothic abbey church in the city of Westminster, London, England, just to the west of the Palace of Westminster, one of the United Kingdom's most notable religious buildings, and as a burial. Thereafter, I think if you could actually corroborate with the fact, right now when we saw the death of Queen Elizabeth II, she was also buried in Westminster Abbey. Thereafter, he was increasingly seen to have has lasting effect on literary critics and was even claimed to be one of truly great critic of English literature. So when you want to know about this early life and career education, early career, dictionaries of English language, later career, final work, final years, literary critic, character, health, legacy, all these things you can find out. And this is simple. You can come to this Wikipedia. Life and career is what he's doing. Samuel Johnson, what he's doing. So let me just read out brief life and career. Samuel Johnson was born on 18 September 1709 at Sarah and Michael Johnson, a bookseller. His mother was 40 when he gave birth to Johnson in family home above his father's bookshop in Lichfield, Staffordshire. This was considered an unusually late pregnancy, so uh, precautions were taken as a man, midwife, and surgeon of great reputation named George Hector was brought into the assist. The infant Johnson did not cry and were not concerned for his health. His aunt exclaimed that she would not have picked such a poor creature up in the street. The family feared Johnson would not survive, and someone summoned the Vicar of St. Mary to perform a baptism. Two grandfathers were chosen, Samuel and okay. So this is what when he born he didn't weep and he was a poor boy. I mean physically very weak. Johnson's health improved and he was put to West Nurse and John Marklew sometime later are known the time because it was so these are the informations about Johnson you can find out. And Johnson displays sign of great intellectual as a child, and his parents to his later disguise would show of his newly acquired accomplishment. His education began at the age of 3 and was provided by his mother, who had his memories and recited pages for Book of Common Prayers. When Samuel Johnson 4, he went to a nearby school. At the age of 6, he was sent to retire as shoemaker to continue to his education. A year later, Johnson went to Lichfield Grammar School and were excellent in Latin. So these are his childhood schooling and his achievements, how he's reading. At the age of 16, Johnson stays with his cousin, and all these things you can actually find out from. It's easy for you to read out. Early career. So these are his early careers, and because our concern is primarily right now the text which we are going to study. So this is one of the biggest contribution that Dictionary of English Languages. 1746 group of publishers approached Johnson with an idea about creating an authoritative dictionary of English language, a contract with William. Okay, so if we could, because these are the details which you can find out. We are not here discussing the writer so much, because if we are discussing Jhonson, that will be the different altogether. But right now, our main concern is to talk about the text. So for that, I'm taking here, and if we can find out. So I think straightforward. You can. This is all here. You can actually go and read out, and this is available on Wikipedia. So these are all things, because I'm just going away. Otherwise, it will take a lot of time. Right. So these are his major works. These are his major works. We can find out. This is what essays, pamphlet, and periodical sermons. These are his essays, pamphlets, and periodical sermons. You can see Rambler, Universal Visitor, Plain of Dictionary of the English Language. Okay. Then these are all poetry. These are his poetry. Okay. Then biography. Then novella, the history of Rasellas. So this is what it is known as novel or novella, and this is what we have to find out. Now let me come to the main significant part of the this article today, and that is history of Rasila, Prince of Abyssinia. So the history of Rasila, Prince of Abyssinia, originally titled The Prince of Abyssinia, a tale, though often abbreviated to the Rasila as an apologue. Apologue is so what is apologue? An apologue, apologue or apologue is a brief fable or allegorical story with pointed or exaggerated details, meant to serve as a pleasant vehicle for the moral doctrine or to convey a useful lessons with stating it explicitly. Unlike a fable, the moral is more important than the narrative details, as with the पैराबल एंड एप्लॉग. सो एप्लॉग क्या होता है? दीज आर द मॉरल स्टोरीज. आई मीन जैसे बच्चों की कहानियां होती है ना, बच्चों को सिखाने के लिए इस तरह की स्टोरी बनाई जाती है जिसमें कि दे लर्न द मॉरल लेसन. फॉर एग्जाम्पल, मान लो ऑनेस्टी सिखाना है बच्चों को, तो इस तरह की कहानी बनाएंगे कि दो दोस्त थे, फिर उसमें से एक को कोई गोल्ड, किसी की गोल्ड की चेन पड़ी हुई मिली और उसने ले जाके उसको ऑनर को दे दिया, and then after that he was awarded or with gifts and all and appreciations and all. तो इस तरह की मतलब कोई भी कहानी हो जिसको कि हम एपिलॉग बोलते हैं, जो मॉरल स्टोरीज हो, जैसे जातक कहानी है जो बुद्ध की लाइफ को रिलेटेड है, पंचतंत्र की कहानियां बच्चों के लिए. तो ये सारी कहानियां इस तरह होती है, जैसे ज्यादातर बच्चों के कार्टून भी इसी तरह होते हैं कि दे टीच देम लेसन, और कुछ ना कुछ उसमें अच्छी बात सिखाते हैं बच्चों. तो मॉरल स्टोरीज आप समझ लें इसको सीधा सा. इज एन एपिलॉग अबाउट ब्लिस एंड इग्नोरेंस, और ब्लिस और इग्नोरेंस के बारे में है ये. द बुक सैमुअल जॉनसन की फोटो देख लो आप. आई मीन दिस इज व्हाट यू कैन सी हिम. द बुक ओरिजिनली वर्किंग टाइटल द चॉइस ऑफ लाइफ, और इसका जो टाइटल है, बुक का जो टाइटल है वो क्या है? चॉइस ऑफ लाइफ. मतलब आप जिंदगी की क्या चॉइस लेते. द बुक was first published in 1759 in England. Early readers consider Rasilla to be the work of philosophical and practical importance, and critics often remark to difficulty of classifying it as a novel. तो नोवेल क्या होता है ये देखो डेफिनेशन, बिकॉज दिस इज द क्वेश्चन वेरी ऑफन इट कम. व्हाट इज नोवेल? Novel is a relatively long work of narrative fiction, typically written in prose and published as a book. The present English words for a long work of prose fiction derived from the Italian novella, for new or news, and short story of something new, itself from the Latin novella, a singular noun used for the neuter plural. So this is what novella. That's what you were earlier you were reading ना. इसमें पहले, I mean, if I tell you, this is what it is written: history of Rasila, the Prince of Abyssinia. And if you see this novellas, okay, so this novellas is coming from Latin and it means novel. So let's come to the point which we were discussing, and this is what the text is here. The Prince of Abyssinia, a tale in 2 volumes, and this is what author is Samuel Jhonson. Original title: The Prince of Abyssinia, a tale. Country: United Kingdom, English. And this is Yanar, Yanar we know, Genre. Apologue and Theodicy. What is Theodicy? Theodicy means vindication of God. It is to answer the questions of why a good God permit the manifestation of evil, thus resolving the issues of problem of evil. Some theodicies also address the problem of evil to make the existence of all known and powerful all. So, apologue means a brief fable of allegorical story and pointed or exaggerated detail, meant to serve a pleasant vehicle for the moral doctrine or a convey as a useful lesson without stating it explicitly. Unlike a fable, the moral is more important than the narrative detail. So, apologue is a kind of moral story, and which is main purpose is to teach a lesson, a good lesson. And फेबल में क्या होता है इट्स अ मॉरल इज इम्पोर्टेंट अनलाइक अ फेबल द मॉरल is important. So in this epilogue, in the story, the moral, the learning is significant, and publisher is R.N.J. Dosley. You can remember this will be an extra added fact for your writing or your answer, that James Dosley is a publisher. Okay, and this is in the print form. Now you can find out the what is origin and influences, content, character list, critical interpretations, oriental interpretations, comparison of candid, legacy, addition. Okay, so these are the things which we need to understand. So what is Prince of Abyssinia or Prince of Rasila? Where is the origin? At the age of 15, Jhonson wrote the piece in only 1 week to help pay off the cost of his mother's funeral, intending to complete it on 22nd January 1759, in the eve of his mother's death. Jhonson is believed to have received a total of £75 for the copyright, though this is still popular belief. Wharton and Mayerson's book Samuel Johnson and Theme of Hope, because these are the texts which will help you. If you just see the how Wharton and Mayerson's book Samuel Johnson and Theme of Hope explain how James Boswell, the author of Johnson's biography, because this is the main significant man you need to remember, and this is the most significant book on him, Johnson's biography, was entirely wrong in supposing that Rasila was written soon after his mother's death. So the popular information about this text, this history of Abyssinia, is that he wrote it on the for the funeral of his mother, and for that he got £75. But what James Boswell says that entirely wrong in supposing the Rasila was written soon after his mother's death. So James Boswell doesn't agree with this fact. Otherwise, what is the popular notion is that this text was written to he wanted to have a funeral, mother's funeral. He wanted to have some money for the cost of his mother's funeral, and for that matter, he wrote it as a copyright. Okay, so these are the facts which you need to remember. Was entirely wrong in supposing that Rasila was written soon after his mother's death. It was a way of defraying the expense of the funeral. In fact, Johnson wrote Rasila instead of going to see his mother while she was still alive. It was written in anticipation of her funeral. Edward Thomas Kane write in this book, Jhonson, Rasila, the choice of criticism, and his belief was not questioned until 1927. The tradition of the gloomy funeral tone of the choice of life motif in Rasila remained unopposed. The question of whether or not in Genesis of Rasila involved literal funeral was not considered important. Moreover, the assumption of the gloomy Genesis served to keep religion in the background, or for any theological difficulty could be attributed to the fact that author was mourning the death of his mother. So you know what the popular notion about this what is this the history of Rasila. So the popular notion is that it was written for the cost of his mother's funeral, but James Boswell denies this, and it is not so. And there is other writer, Edward wait Edward. Okay, so we could actually no. Okay, Edward Tomarken and James Boswell both agree that it was not so. They both agree that it was written while his mother was alive. So Edward Tomarken's book is. You remember, this will help you to write your clear answer. Edward Tomarkins write in his book Jhonson, Rasila and the Choice of Criticism, and this is what James Boswell, we already know Johnson's biography. So these are the facts which you can include for your answer. You can repeat it also. Okay, you can see the video again and again for the clear information. Okay, so following in the footsteps of Voltaire, who is Voltaire? Francois Marie Arouet was a French Englishman, writer, historian, philosopher known by his nom de plume, Me de Voltaire. He was famous for his wit and his criticism of Christianity, especially the Roman Catholic Church and of slavery. So this is Voltaire is very famous, and he was famous for his wit and criticism. Okay, so this is Voltaire. Okay, we have come to Voltaire. Now let's come to the back. And Montesquieu. Montesquieu was a generally preferred as simply Montesquieu was a French judge, man of letters, historian, political philosopher. Okay, then Persian letter, a literary work published in 1721 by Charles D. Seconded. Okay, so these are Jhonson was influenced by the wake of exotic location. In art, history, literature, and culture studies, Orientalism is the imitation of the depiction of the aspects in the Eastern world. These depictions are usually done by writers, designers, and artists from the Western world. In particular, Orientalist painting depicting the specifically the Middle East. So this Orientalism, na, it's a very famous phrase or famous term in English and history and all other humanities subjects. And what is Orientalism is the imitation or depiction of the aspects in Eastern world through poetry, designing, art, culture, writing, all these things. Okay, so he had translated a Voyage of Abyssinia by Geronimo Lobo, 1735. He used it the basis of the philosophical romance. 10 years before he wrote Rasellas, he published Vanity of Human Wishes. This is also written by Jhonson. Now this is something George Louis Borges was an Argentine short story writer, essayist, poet, and translator, as well as a key figure in Spanish language and international literature. His best known book is Fiction and Al Elf, the published in 1940. So this is what he's saying. What George Louis Borges says: the idea of prince condemned to a happy imprisonment, he dissonance. Jhonson himself was probably ignorant of it in the legend of Buddha. So it would have reached him through the story of Barlam and Josephat. What is Balaam and Josephat? Also known as Bilavar and Buddha Shaf, are legendary Christian saints. Their life was based on the life of Gautam Buddha and tells of the conversion of Josephat to Christianity according to the legend. An Indian king persecuted Christian church. Okay, this is the remarkable statement because Buddha we all know. So the idea of the prince condemned to happy imprisonment has resonated. Jhonson himself was probably ignorant of it, the legend of Buddha. And you know what is the Gautam Buddha? Because he was a prince and he born and brought up in a very luxurious life, but he actually denounced everything. So George Louis Borges is trying to say that probably Jhonson was not aware about the story of Buddha, but the life of Prince of Abyssinia is very similar to the life of Buddha, where he renounced, happy life. He thought it as an imprisonment, though it would have reached him through the story of Barlam and Josephat, because the story of Barlam and Josephat also talk about the denouncing the luxurious life. The story was based on the life of Gautam Buddha, adapted as a subject of Lope de Vega. This was the Spanish playwright and poet novelist. He was one of the key figure in the Spanish golden age of literature. His reputation in the world of Spanish literature is second only to that of the Miguel de Cervantes, while the sheer volunteer of his literature. So Cervantes, we all know in Spanish, Cervantes, this Don Quixote, all of us know that. Comedian, the idea of the prince who has been brought by surrounded and artificial happiness. So Buddha also renounced his life and he thought that this is not the real life. Happiness and all this luxury of life is not real. And he went to search the knowledge, enlightenment. And finally, he got enlightenment. Although many have argued that the book Rasila had nothing to do with Abyssinia, and the Samuel Johnson chose Abyssinia as the location for no other reason than wanting to write an anti-Orientalist fantasy. Some have begun to argue the book has been kept tied to Ethiopia, though due to Johnson's translation of A Voyage to Abyssinia and his lifelong interest in his Christianity. The scholars have argued that Johnson was influenced, at least in part, by the text including Herodotus and Paradise Lost. According to Wendy L. bachelor when Jhonson sent his manuscript to the publish his title work, The History of Prince Abyssinia, which is that he had still not decided in name of his protagonist. It's the bachelor's argument that Jhonson coined the name Rasila for its symbolic meaning, not in phonetic relation to the Catholic prince Rasila Christor. Since res means prince and sila means portrait, so you can understand this meaning. The res ras, the whole word is Rasila. Okay, so here it gives the meaning of this. What is this Rasila? Rasila is okay. We are trying to find out. Okay, so Rasila means this is what. So Ras Sila. Since Ras means prince and Sila means portrait, a portrait of a prince. So Ras means prince and Sila means portrait. Jhonson may have invented the term portrait of prince as an evocative name of his main character. And what is there? The content of the Rasila. We can find out what is this. Rasila, the fourth son of king of Abyssinia, modern day Ethiopia, is shut up in beautiful valley called Happy Valley till the order of succession should call him to the throne. Rasila enlists the help of an artist who is also known as engineer to help with his escape from the valley by plunging out through the air. Though they are unsuccessful in this attempt, Rasila grows weary of fictitious entertainment of the place and after much brooding escape with his sister Nikaya. Her attachment Pikuha and the poet friend Imlek by digging under the wall of the valley. They are to see the world and search the happiness in the place such as Cairo and Suez. After a sojourn in Egypt, where counter various classes of society undergo a few advantages, the futility of the church in Abyssinia after none of their hope of happiness. Rasila, okay, these are the character lists. Rasila, the son of king of Abyssinia, Imlad, philosopher, son of merchant who has come to the happy valley only to find the life is empty. Then Nikaya, sister and traveling companion of Rasila. Pikua, Nikaya's attendant. The master, one of Rasila's teacher, he learned the Rasila's discontent and tried to encourage him to content in the valley of happiness. The Basa, the highest title of honor in the Ottoman Empire. The Basa does little to help his subject. In the engineer, Rasila is intrigued by this man's mechanical understanding and observes his attempt to create a flying contraption. However, he triumphantly fails. Okay, and then astronomer, a learned man that lives in solitude. He confesses in lack that he believed he can control the weather. Later, he came back his sins after a visit of Pekuhas and Nikayas. So these are the characters we come to know. Okay, and then this is the competition. The critical interpretation is there, and the Orientalist preparation is there.